The translation came through wrong. It had to be wrong. Counselor Drimith read the message again, his 4 eyes blinking in confusion. The humans had answered the call for military aid. After 3 cycles of desperate requests, Earth had finally agreed to send help against the Vorith Empire. But the ship manifest made no sense. Medical supplies, surgical equipment, blood storage units, healing staff. Where were the weapons? Where were the death machines the humans were famous for? Drimith had studied the footage from Earth. He had seen humans chase prey for days without stopping. He had watched them survive injuries that would kill any other species. He had witnessed their pack hunting tactics, their terrifying endurance, their complete disregard for personal safety in combat. The Vorith had burned 17 worlds. The Council needed killers. Instead, humanity was sending doctors. The Pelori counselor walked to the landing bay with heavy steps. Around him, Council soldiers stood ready with weapons charged. Armed escorts lined the corridor. Reinforced barriers had been erected in case the humans became violent. Everyone knew that deathworlders were unpredictable. The ship descended through the atmosphere of Tessara 4. It was smaller than Drimith expected. The hull was painted white with a red symbol on the side. No bisiblegans, no miseltuvs, no armor plating. The name on the ship read Gentle Harbor. This had to be a mistake. The loading ramp lowered with a soft hiss. Drimith gripped his data pad tightly. The Council soldiers raised their weapons slightly. Everyone held their breath. A human female walked down the ramp. She was older, with gray streaks in her dark hair and lines around her eyes. She wore simple white clothing with the same red symbol from the ship. Her hands were empty. She was smiling. Behind her came more humans. A large male with dark skin and gentle eyes. A smaller female with black hair tied back neatly. A young male who looked barely adult, bouncing slightly on his feet. More followed. 20 humans in total. None of them carried weapons. Drimith stepped forward carefully. I am Counselor Drimith of the Pelori delegation. We requested military assistance. The older female extended her hand. Drimith had read about this gesture. He took it carefully, surprised by the warmth of her skin. Dr. Hannah Webb, she said, Chief Medical Officer of the Earth Relief Corps. We came as fast as we could. Forgive me, Drimith said slowly, but we asked for warriors. The Vorith are destroying our worlds. We need soldiers who can fight. Dr. Webb looked at him with calm eyes. Counselor, you asked for humanity's help against an enemy that kills without mercy. Earth has sent you exactly what you need. But you are healers. Yes. We need people who can stop the Vorith. The large male stepped forward. His arms were thick with muscle. His chest was broad. He looked like he could break a Vorith soldier in half. But his voice was soft. Sergeant David Okonkwo, he said. Combat médic. 15 years of service. I have stopped more enemies than you can count, Counselor. Drimith tilted his head. How? You carry no weapons. I carry bandages, Okonkwo said. Every soldier I save returns to the fight. Every civilian I heal becomes someone the enemy failed to destroy. Every life I protect is a victory the Vorith cannot take back. The young male bounced forward with an eager smile. Luis Reyes, field medic. The way I see it, Counselor, killing one enemy removes one enemy. But saving one ally? That person might save 10 more. It multiplies. Dr. Webb nodded. The Vorith understand destruction. They have built their entire empire on the mathematics of death. But they have never encountered a species that fights using the mathematics of life. Drimith looked at the small group of humans. No armor, no guns, no warships, just 20 soft-skinned creatures with medical bags and warm smiles. The Council prepared for human warriors, he said quietly. We built reinforced barracks. We arranged armed escorts. We expected something different. The smaller female with black hair laughed gently. Priya Sharma, pediatric specialist. Don't worry, Counselor. We get that reaction a lot. You truly believe you can help us? Against the Vorith? With medicine. Dr. Webb's smile faded slightly. Her eyes became serious. In that moment, Drimith saw something behind the gentleness. Something hard and unbreakable. Counselor Drimith, she said, The Vorith have prepared for warriors. They know how to fight soldiers. They know how to break armies. They have studied every military tactic in the galaxy. She paused. They have never faced an enemy that refuses to let people die. That is not a weapon. It is the most dangerous weapon humanity has ever developed. She picked up a medical bag from the ramp. Now, I understand you have refugees who need care. Take us to them. Drimith looked at the council soldiers with their charged weapons. He looked at the reinforced barriers. He looked at all the preparations they had made for violent deathworlders. Then he looked at Dr. Hannah Webb, 52 years old, holding a bag full of bandages, ready to walk into a war zone. For the first time since the Vorith invasion began, Drimith felt something strange in his chest. He felt hope. "Follow me," he said. The child was screaming. Drimith could hear it through the communication feed. High-pitched, terrified. The sound cut through the chaos of battle like a knife through flesh. 3 days. The human medical team had been on Tessara 4 for 3 days. They had organized their supplies. They had studied Pelori anatomy. They had prepared their equipment. Now the Vorith were attacking a refugee convoy, and everything was about to change. 400 civilians, the tactical officer reported. Mostly families. The Vorith raiders have cut off their escape route. Estimated survival rate, 12%. Drimith closed his eyes. 12%. That was generous. The Vorith did not take prisoners. They did not show mercy. The standard council response was clear. Sacrifice the convoy to save the main force. We need to deploy. Drimith turned. Dr. Webb was standing at the command console, her medical bag already on her shoulder. "That is not possible," Drimith said. "The convoy is in a kill zone. Anyone who enters will die. Those people will die if we don't enter. That is acceptable losses. Council doctrine states, council doctrine can burn." The gentleness was gone from Webb's voice. "There are children in that convoy. We're going." Sergeant Okonkwo was already moving toward the transport bay. Priya Sharma followed. Luis Reyes grabbed extra supplies. The entire human team was mobilizing without waiting for permission. "This is suicide," Drimith said. "The Vorith have heavy weapons. You have no armor. No shields. No. We have hands," Okonkwo said. "We have training. We have the stubborn refusal to watch people die when we could help." He smiled. "That's enough." The human transport launched before Drimith could stop it, that he watched the tactical display with growing horror. The Vorith had surrounded the convoy. Burning vehicles littered the road. Pelori civilians ran in panic while raiders picked them off one by one. The human transport landed directly in the center of the chaos. "They're insane," the tactical officer whispered. The humans poured out of the transport. No weapons. No defensive formations. They simply ran toward the wounded. Drimith watched Okonkwo sprint through enemy fire. A blast hit the ground near his feet. He did not slow down. He reached a cluster of wounded Pelori and began loading them onto his shoulders. 3 at once. 3 adult Pelori, each weighing more than the human himself. He carried them like they were nothing. Priya Sharma found a group of children hiding under a destroyed vehicle. Vorith's soldiers were approaching. She stepped between the children and the enemy, her body the only shield she offered. A Vorith raised its weapon. Luis Reyes tackled the creature from the side. The young medic had no combat training. He had no chance against a Vorith warrior. But he fought anyway, buying time for Sharma to evacuate the children. Doctor Webb was inside a burning transport vehicle. The flames were spreading. Any sane person would have fled. Instead, she was performing surgery on a Pelori with a chest wound. Her hands moved with perfect steadiness while fire crept closer. "Get her out of there," Drimith ordered. "Send rescue teams." "Send. No rescue teams available," the tactical officer said. "The humans are on their own." Drimith could only watch. The battle lasted 2 hours. 2 hours of humans running into fire instead of away from it. 2 hours of medics treating wounds while explosions shook the ground. 2 hours of absolute madness. When the Vorith finally retreated, Drimith did not understand why. "They had superior numbers," he said to the tactical officer. "They had better weapons. Why did they leave?" The officer shook his head. "Unknown. Their communications mentioned confusion. They did not understand what the humans were doing. They expected soldiers to retreat when wounded. They expected enemies to abandon their dead. The humans did neither. The transport returned to base. Drimith ran to the landing bay. The humans stumbled out covered in blood and ash. 12 of them had injuries. 3 were in critical condition. Luis Reyes was unconscious, his body wrapped in emergency bandages. But behind them came the Pelori. Families, children, elders, wounded but alive. 387 civilians who should have died. Dr. Webb's hands were burned from the fire. Her face was black with smoke. Her voice was hoarse, but she was smiling. 97% survival rate, she said to Drimith. Not bad for acceptable losses. A Pelori mother approached the counselor. She was holding her daughter, a small child with bandages on her arm. The mother was crying. The human, she said, pointing at Okonkwo. The big one. He carried us through the fire. He told us we would be safe. He promised. She looked at Drimith with wonder. He kept his promise. Drimith turned to Dr. Webb. Why? Why did you risk your lives for strangers? They are not your people. They are not even your species. Webb wiped blood from her hands. Counselor, every person is our people. Every species is our species. That's what being human means. Okonkwo limped over, still carrying a Pelori child on his hip. The child was clinging to him, refusing to let go. She's scared, Okonkwo explained. I told her I'd stay until she felt safe. Drimith looked at the child, looked at the refugees, looked at the wounded humans who had nearly died for aliens they had never met that he finally understood. The Vorith conquered through fear. They broke worlds by making people believe no one would save them. The humans had just proven them wrong. The Vorith prisoner was dying. His blood was dark purple, leaking from wounds that covered his gray body. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides. His breathing came in wet, rattling gasps. General Thesic stood over the creature with a plasma pistol in his hand. 200 Vorith prisoners lay in the courtyard of the field hospital. Many were wounded. Some were dying. All of them were enemies. Standard protocol, Thesic said to his soldiers. Execute the wounded. Leave none alive. Dr. Hannah Webb stepped in front of the general. She was smaller than him by half. She had no weapon. She had no authority. She was just a human with tired eyes and bloody hands. No, she said. Thesic's mandibles clicked with irritation. These are enemy combatants. They have killed thousands of our people. They deserve death. They deserve medical care. That is absurd. That is the oath I took. Webb did not move. I will treat any wounded being, regardless of species, regardless of allegiance, regardless of what they have done. That is what it means to be a healer. Thesic raised his pistol. Step aside, human. This is not your decision. It is exactly my decision. Webb's voice was calm but firm. You asked humanity for help. This is how we help. We heal everyone. Drimith watched from nearby, his heart's pounding. The human was going to die. Thesic was a decorated general with decades of combat experience. He did not tolerate disobedience, but Thesic hesitated. Something in Webb's eyes made him pause. Some quiet strength that did not flinch or waver. You would die for these monsters? The general asked. I would die for any patient. That is the point. Thesic lowered his weapon slowly. You humans are truly insane. Perhaps. Webb turned to her team. Begin triage. Prioritize the critical cases. Okonkwo, take the east section. Sharma west. Reyes, help me with this one. The humans spread out among the Vorith wounded. They worked with the same focus and care they had shown the Pelori refugees. Clean the wounds. Stop the bleeding. Stabilize the patients. Drimith approached Webb as she knelt beside a young Vorith soldier. The creature was barely adult, its body thin and underdeveloped. It had a deep wound in its chest. Why? Drimith asked. These beings burned civilian hospitals. They killed children. They have shown no mercy to anyone. Webb did not look up from her work. That is exactly why we must show mercy to them. I do not understand. If we become like our enemies, they have already won. We heal because healing is right, not because the patient deserves it. The young Vorith soldier opened his eyes. He saw the human hands working on his wound. He saw the gentle face above him. Panic filled his expression. Enemy, he croaked. Kill me. Just kill me. Hush, Webb said softly. You're safe now. No one is going to hurt you. I am Vorith. You are supposed to hate me. I don't hate you. I don't even know you. She finished closing his wound and began wrapping bandages. What's your name? The soldier stared at her with confusion. No one had ever asked his name before. In the Vorith military, soldiers were numbers, not individuals. Kel, he said finally. Unit designation Kel, 7. Just Kel is fine. Webb smiled at him. Rest now, Kel. You're going to be okay. Priya Sharma approached with a report. We have stabilized 43 critical patients. Another 60 need surgery. The rest have minor wounds that we can treat with basic supplies. Good. Keep working. General Fessick watched from the edge of the courtyard. His expression was unreadable. After a long moment, he walked away without giving the execution order. Hours passed. The humans worked without rest. They saved Vorith lives with the same dedication they had shown to council civilians. Word began to spread. Drimith heard the reports from the front lines. Vorith soldiers were talking. They whispered about the strange humans who healed enemies. They wondered why any species would waste resources on defeated foes. Some began to question the Vorith way. The young soldier Kel woke again near midnight. Priya Sharma was changing his bandages, her movements gentle and practiced. Why do you help me? Kel asked. I killed your allies. I followed orders. I was a good soldier. Sharma looked at him with sad eyes. Being a good soldier does not mean you have to be a bad person. You followed orders because you had no choice. Now you have a choice. What choice? To be better. She finished the bandages and stood. Think about it, Kel. When this war ends, who do you want to be? She walked away to help another patient. Kel lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in his life, someone had treated him like a person instead of a weapon. Something inside him began to crack. Drimith found Dr. Webb sitting alone outside the hospital tent. She was exhausted. Her hands trembled slightly from hours of surgery. This is either brilliant strategy or complete madness, he said. Webb laughed quietly. Can it not be both? The Vorith will not understand this. They will see it as weakness. No. Webb looked up at the stars. They will see it as something they have never encountered before. They will see kindness. And kindness, counselor, is the one thing that cannot be defeated by violence. In the hospital behind them, 200 Vorith prisoners slept peacefully for the first time in their lives. The cracks were spreading. The sky turned green. Drimith watched the toxic clouds spread over Tessera Prime through the command center screens. The Vorith had deployed their final weapon, a biological agent that dissolved living cells within hours. 2 million civilians were trapped in the city below. Quarantine protocol activated. The emergency system announced. No entry permitted. No exit permitted. Containment priority absolute. The council had written off the city before the first victim stopped breathing. Luis Reyes was packing medical supplies into a transport container. His hands moved quickly, filling bags with antitoxins, pain medications, and emergency equipment. Behind him, the rest of the human team prepared the same way. You cannot go in there, Drimith said. His voice cracked. The contamination is lethal. There is no cure. You will die. Dr. Webb sealed her hazmat suit and checked the oxygen supply. Then we will die helping people. That makes no sense. It makes perfect sense. She looked at him through her helmet visor. Those are living beings in that city. They are scared. They are in pain. They are dying alone. We can change one of those things. Okonkwo loaded heavy equipment onto his back. His face was calm. Priya Sharma held a bag filled with children's medicine. Luis Reyes was already walking toward the transport. This is suicide, Drimith repeated. Maybe. Webb put her hand on his shoulder. But if we don't go, 2 million people will die knowing that no one tried to save them. We cannot cure them, but we can be there. We can hold their hands. We can tell them they mattered. That is not a military objective. No, it's a human one. The transport lifted off without clearance. Drimith watched it disappear into the green clouds. For 6 days, he received fragmented reports. Day 1. The humans established a treatment center in a school building. Hundreds of infected civilians lined up outside. The medics worked without rest, treating symptoms they could not cure. Day 2. Okonkwo carried children through contaminated streets. Their parents were already dead. He brought them to Sharma, who set up a makeshift orphanage in the treatment center. She told them stories while they slowly weakened. Day 3. Webb developed a treatment protocol from observing the infection. It did not cure the disease, but it slowed the progression. Hours of life became days. Days became weeks for some. Day 4. Luis Reyes found a breach in his hazmat suit. The contamination entered his bloodstream. He sealed the breach with tape and continued working. He did not tell the others. Day 5. Reyes collapsed during surgery. Webb discovered the infection in his blood. She ordered him to rest. He refused. There were still patients who needed help. Day 6. The contamination reached critical levels in the city. Bodies filled the streets. The human medics could no longer keep up with the dying. They changed their mission from saving lives to providing comfort. Webb lost her voice from talking to dying patients. Okonkwo stopped sleeping entirely. Sharma sang lullabies to children who would not wake up. On the 7th day, Luis Reyes died. He was 24 years old. He had been a medic for 3 years. He had saved over 200 lives during the outbreak by working through his own infection. His last patient was a Pelori child named Mira. She was 6 years old. Her parents were already gone. She was scared of dying alone. Reyes held her hand for 12 hours. He told her about Earth, about blue oceans and green forests and animals that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. He promised her that someone would remember her name. Mira died at sunrise. Reyes died 10 minutes later, still holding her hand. The quarantine lifted on day 8. The biological agent had finally dispersed. Council rescue teams entered the city, expecting to find only corpses. They found survivors. 200,000 people who should have died were still alive. Weak, infected, damaged, but breathing. Sharma's treatment protocol had worked better than anyone expected. The humans had turned certain death into possible survival, but the cost was visible in every face. Drimith found Webb sitting beside a small grave outside the treatment center. She had buried Luis Reyes with her own hands. A simple marker bore his name. "I told him not to go in with that breach," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. He said the patients needed him more than he needed to be safe. He was a hero. He was 24 years old. Webb wiped her eyes. He had his whole life ahead of him. He wanted to open a clinic on Earth, help poor communities, change the world. He did change the world. Webb looked at him. Her face was hollow with exhaustion and grief. 1.8 million people still died, counselor. We saved 200,000. That means 1.8 million died. They did not die alone. Something in Webb's expression shifted. The grief remained, but something else appeared alongside it. A quiet acceptance. No, she agreed. They did not die alone. The galaxy watched the footage that escaped the quarantine. They saw humans walking into certain death to hold strangers' hands. They saw a young man working through his own fatal infection to save others. They saw something they had never seen before. Courage was not the absence of fear. Courage was showing up anyway. Luis Reyes became the first human honored by the Galactic Council. His grave on Tessera Prime became a pilgrimage site for species across the stars. The inscription read, "He refused to let anyone die alone." High Commander Rethak crushed the data tablet in his claws. The reports made no sense. 3 battalions had refused deployment orders. 2 warships had gone silent near the border. Desertion rates had increased by 400% in a single month. The Vorith Empire was crumbling from within. "Explain this," Rethak growled at his intelligence officer. "The humans, Commander." The officer's voice trembled. "The soldiers who were captured and treated by human medics have been returning to their units. They're spreading stories." "What stories?" "That the humans heal enemies. That they show kindness without expecting anything in return. That they—" The officer paused. "That they treat Vorith soldiers like people." Rethak slammed his fist against the table. "We are weapons. We are the Empire's instruments of conquest. We are not people." "That is what we told them, Commander. But the humans told them something different. The young soldier Kel had been released from a human field hospital 3 weeks ago. He returned to his unit with fully healed wounds and a broken mind. Not broken by torture or pain, broken by kindness that he told his fellow soldiers about the human woman who changed his bandages. He told them about the question she asked. He told them she wanted to know his name, not his unit designation. His name. The other soldiers listened. They had never been asked their names before. They had been bred for war, trained for death, programmed to follow orders. The idea that they might be individuals was foreign and terrifying, and irresistible. Kel's story spread through the battalion, then through the regiment, then through the entire sector force. Soldiers who had never questioned anything began to wonder, if the enemy sees us as people, what does that make our commanders? Rethak ordered all defectors executed. This made the problem worse. Soldiers who might have stayed loyal now saw the Empire as the enemy. They surrendered in groups, whole units laying down weapons and walking toward human positions. They wanted to be healed. Not their bodies, their souls. A battalion commander named Torek contacted the humans directly. He was a veteran of 30 campaigns. He had burned cities and slaughtered civilians on a dozen worlds. His record was spotless in the eyes of the Empire. But his mind was not. 3 years ago, Torek had ordered the destruction of a civilian hospital. He told himself it was necessary. Military targets were inside. Collateral damage was acceptable. He followed orders. The screams never stopped. He heard them in his sleep. He heard them in silence. He heard them every time he looked at child. The hospital had been full of children. Torek requested a meeting with Dr. Webb. She agreed. They met in a neutral zone between the lines. Drimith watched from a distance, his hand on a weapon he hoped he would not need. Torek was enormous, even for Vorith. His gray skin was covered with battle scars. His forearms could tear a human apart in seconds. He stood before Webb like a mountain before a stream. "I wish to surrender," he said. "Not my soldiers. Myself. For crimes against civilians." Webb looked up at him. "What crimes?" Torek told her about the hospital. He did not make excuses. He did not blame orders. He simply described what he had done, his voice flat and empty. When he finished, Webb was silent for a long moment. "I cannot forgive you," she said finally. "That is not my right. The people you killed are not here to offer forgiveness." Torek nodded. "I know. I did not come for forgiveness. I came for," he struggled to find the word, "accountability. Accountability. The humans heal. But healing starts with truth. I must speak truth about what I did. I must let others know." He looked at her with something like hope. "If I confess, perhaps other commanders will confess. Perhaps the killing will stop." Webb studied him for a long time. Then she did something that shocked everyone watching. She reached out and took his massive claw in her small hand. "That kind of courage is harder than fighting," she said. "Are you certain?" "I have never been more certain of anything." Torek broadcast his confession across every Vorith military channel. He described his crimes in detail. He named the hospital. He named the commanders who ordered the attack. He called for all Vorith soldiers to lay down their weapons, that he called for peace. The Vorith Empire split in half within a week. Those loyal to the old ways fought against those who wanted change. Civil war erupted across a dozen systems. The humans had never fired a weapon. Drimith watched the chaos unfold for the command center. Ships battled ships. Soldiers fought former comrades. An empire that had conquered worlds was tearing itself apart. "You did this," he said to Webb. "You broke them without violence." "No." Webb shook her head. "They were already broken. We just showed them they could be fixed." Kel appeared at the medical center the next day. He was wearing civilian clothes. His eyes were clear. "I want to learn," he said. "I want to heal instead of destroy." Sharma smiled and handed him a bandage. "Then let's begin." The war was not over, but something had shifted. For the first time, the outcome was no longer about who could kill more efficiently. It was about who could heal faster. The council chamber was silent. Drimith stood at the central podium, looking out at representatives from 47 species. They had gathered to hear his final report on the human involvement in the Vorith War. 3 months of conflict had ended not with a decisive battle, but with a surrender no one expected. Honored delegates, Drimith began. I was asked to assess humanity as a military ally. I was asked to report on their weapons, their tactics, their strategic value. He paused. I have failed. Murmurs spread through the chamber. I have failed because I cannot classify what humanity brought to this war. They brought no warships. They brought no weapons. They brought no soldiers in the traditional sense. Drimith looked down at his notes. They brought 20 medical personnel and a ship full of bandages. And they won, the delegate asked. The Vorith Empire has fractured into 17 independent states. 12 have requested peace treaties. For an active civil war, the Empire as a military threat no longer exists. Drimith set down his notes. The humans never fired a shot. The chamber erupted in confused conversation. Drimith waited for silence before continuing. They did not defeat the Vorith through violence. They defeated them through something far more dangerous. They showed compassion to enemies. They healed soldiers who had committed atrocities. They walked into certain death to comfort strangers. Why? Another delegate demanded. What did they gain? Nothing. That is the point. Drimitha's voice grew heavy. They gained nothing except the knowledge that they had helped. For humans, that is enough. On Tessara Prime, the memorial to Luis Reyes had become a gathering place. Species from across the sector traveled to see the small grave with a simple marker. They left offerings. They wept. They remembered a young man who died holding a stranger's hand. Doctor Webb stood before the grave with her team. Okonkwo, Sharma, the others who had survived. They were going home. You could stay, Drimith said. The council has offered to fund a permanent medical corps. With you in command. Webb smiled sadly. Earth needs healers too. There are still people suffering on my own world. I cannot save the galaxy while my neighbors are in pain. But the work here will continue. She gestured to Okonkwo. David has agreed to stay. He will train your people. He will build something that will outlast all of us. Okonkwo nodded. His gentle eyes were determined. Every species can learn to heal. We just need to teach them how. Priya Sharma approached with 3 small figures behind her. Pelori children. The orphans from Tessara Prime. She had adopted all 3. They wanted to say goodbye to Luis, she explained. They remember him. The smallest child placed a flower on the grave. He told me about Earth, she said quietly. He said there are blue oceans and tall mountains and animals that fly through the sky. He said I would see them someday. Sharma put her hand on the child's shoulder. You will. I promise. Drimith watched them with something he had never felt before. His species did not have a word for it. The closest translation was warmth. I must ask you something, he said to Webb. In all my years of service, I have never understood humans. You are from a death world. Your planet is hostile. Your history is violent. Yet you show more kindness than any species I have known. How is this possible? Webb considered the question carefully. Perhaps because our world is hostile, we learned early that survival requires cooperation. Perhaps because our history is violent, we understand the cost of cruelty. She looked at the grave of Luis Reyes. Or perhaps we simply decided that kindness is stronger than hate. It is a choice we make every day. A choice. Yes, we choose to be better than our worst instincts. We fail sometimes, often even, but we keep choosing. A Vorith shuttle landed nearby. Torek emerged, followed by Kel and a dozen other former soldiers. They had come to pay respects to the fallen. Kel approached the grave and knelt before it. I never met him, he said, but he saved my people, not by defeating us, by showing us we could be more than weapons. Torek stood beside him. The massive commander was changed. The hardness in his eyes had been replaced by something softer. I still hear the screams, he admitted to Webb. From the hospital I destroyed. You will hear them forever, she replied. That is the price of conscience. I know. Torek looked at the grave. But now I also hear something else. I hear the voices of those I might save. That is the reward. Kel rose and faced Sharma. I have been accepted to a human medical school. I will learn to heal. Sharma took his claw in her hand. Then you will be the first of many. The galaxy is changing, Kel. You are part of that change. The ceremony ended at sunset. Webb and her team boarded their transport while the council delegates watched from a distance that a young delegate from a newly contacted species approached Drimith. Is it true what they say about humans? That they are fearsome warriors? Drimith watched the human ship lift into the sky. The words gentle harbor gleamed on its hull. No, he said softly. They are something far more terrifying than warriors. What? They are healers. Drimith turned to face the young delegate. They believe that every life has value. They believe that enemies can become friends. They believe that kindness is a weapon that cannot be defeated. That sounds like weakness. I thought so too. Drimith looked at the stars where the human ship had disappeared. I was wrong. The Vorith prepared for human warriors. They built weapons and trained armies and developed strategies for every type of combat. But they could not prepare for people who refused to see them as enemies. They could not fight against hands that healed instead of harmed. They could not defend against compassion. The young delegate considered this. What happens now? Drimith smiled. For the first time in 3 months, the expression felt natural. Now, he said, we learn from the humans. We build hospitals instead of warships. We train healers instead of soldiers. We choose to be better. The memorial to Luis Reyes glowed softly in the fading light. Around it, species who had once been enemies stood together in peace. The galaxy had been prepared for human warriors. What shattered them were human medics, and they would never be the same.